Hey everybody, Lockie here again, and I'm back after some time. Kind of dropped a ball on that one. I got up to around 500,000 views, then all of a sudden I just stopped making art altogether, pretty much. But now I'm decided to change that. So my name is different, it's under Zombielocky, and so is my website. If you want to go there for tutorials, articles, interviews, so on, go ahead. So basically the way I did this drawing was to cover the whole of the paper in a mist of charcoal, and that's willow charcoal just so it doesn't like scar the paper. Then from there I got a medium to hard charcoal pencil. That way I can sort of do a little bit lighter, it doesn't scar the page so much so I can work it later on. After I've done the outline I start to mold the form. And the best way I can describe of how to do that is if you understand where the light source is coming from and how close it is to the actual object, you can start to mold it and create reality without there actually being any. So you don't need photo reference, you don't need anything of the sort, you just need your brain. So the way I do this is to start with a value, say the white in eye. You know what that is if you sort of pick the value of how much light is hitting it. You take that value and you think, okay, that's the white of the eye, the skin directly above it and below it, what value is that? It's always going to be a little bit darker than the white in the eye, so that's what value you choose. Then when the eyelid is starting to wrap around and starting to go into the eyebrow and you can see things protrude and start to turn away from the light source, that's going to be a bit darker. You also need to keep in mind what the surface is. So if a light source is hitting the wet in an eye, where there is no texture, there's no furrowness, it's just pure like glass, it's going to be like glass pretty much. If it's wet, you're going to see a lot of highlights, where the skin, there's a little bit of texture in it because all the skin pores and stuff. So it's going to be a little bit softer compared to what a highlight in an eye would be like just because of the wetness. You're going to see a lot of contrast. You're going to see where the light hits, where on the skin, where the light hits is going to be a bit softer. It's not going to be an intense highlight. So if you go around the whole form, thinking with logic, picking a value, and then from there relating everything to that one value, you can kind of start to shape the form. Then the question becomes, okay, how do I actually learn how to draw the eye so then I can shape the form? That's the hardest part. Basically, you need to start learning the eye from different angles, start getting that into your knowledge base so you can just pull it out at will, so it makes sense to you, so it just works. That's the only way it's going to actually start to happen for you, for the eye to be realistic, because you can start to render an unrealistic form because the proportions are wrong, and it'll still look kind of right, just because if you push yourself and really try and understand where these wrong proportions are, you can still put correct lighting to it. So you can still kind of get an eye, but you'll never get an eye right if you don't know the proportions to an eye. There's lots of great artists out there who teach you the proportions, but there is no one way for it to actually work properly. Like there's a person named Andrew Loomis. Basically, you start with a ball, you put a cross in it, and you start to realize where proportions are according to where you put lines. And that really does not work at all for a beginner in any way, shape, or form. Just because he's doing it from a knowledge base of like 40 years of understanding of work, and it makes sense to him. And he's presenting it in a book like that's supposed to be how it is, that it's easy and simple. This isn't the way. He can do it because he has a large knowledge base. If I was talking to a beginner and telling them to draw an eye, I would say keep practicing eyes, start to get into your knowledge base. If you're the type of person that loves the analytical stuff, then by all means start looking at anatomy books. Take it from there, learn the different aspects to an eye, the iris, the eyelid, the tear ducts, where they would be, how they're positioned. But all that can get very extensive, and if you do actually draw something, it can kind of get a little bit stale because you're only using anatomy that you know. So a lot of the times you need to just do a gesture drawing, and from that gesture drawing, you can get life. And then from that life, you shape the life and make it realistic. And I hope I'm not making this sound very complicated. I'll try talking a little bit about the drawing now just because I've kind of neglected it a little bit. I will say one technique I use with charcoal is to get a brush to go over it, and that will pick up some of the charcoal so it can sort of erase a little bit. It does this even more if you get a kneaded eraser, put the brush onto it, retract some of the charcoal, then go back over it with the brush. That'll erase even more of the surface. Likewise, if you just want to fix a surface, like it's gotten too textural, a little bit too dark in some places, it's just very good for blending. Because if you try blending with your finger a lot of the times, like the different greases can get on the from your finger to the page, which is never what you want. Just because it can ruin your image to some degree, it can sort of make it hard to work over it because it stains the paper. One thing about doing realistic drawing as well, always try and keep in mind the different separations of values. Like, I don't think I've done this too amazingly here, but if you try doing a painting with 5 different values, it'll have this dynamic sort of effect to it. And it'll look like you understand form so much better than you probably do. Where with me, you can see in the drawing, I'm sort of just taking away, adding, and so on, till it looks right. When pretty much if you see the master's work, oh wait, out of time, bye.